Hello YIS Media family. Hello book lovers. How are you? Today we present to you an excerpt from a great book titled Make Today Count by John C. Maxwell. Subscribe to the media, like and share the video, and if you have an opinion on the story, leave it in the comment section. Thank you. Now directly to the narrative. Health. I need to begin this chapter by making a confession. Usually, when people pick up a book, especially a book that contains advice, they expect the author to be an expert in every area he writes about. That is not the case with me when it comes to health. For much of my life, I have dropped the ball in this area. It was really more a matter of neglect than anything else. I've always been as healthy as a horse. In 30 years of public speaking, first as a pastor and then as a conference and seminar leader, I have never missed an engagement due to illness. Not one. I just don't get sick, and I've always had lots of energy. Even when I had to burn the candle at both ends, I still had plenty of energy left over. I have lived a very fast-paced life. For about 10 years, I held down 2 demanding jobs. I led a church of more than 3,000 people with a staff of over 50 and a budget of $5 million a year. At the same time, I led a leadership development organization that required me to travel to speak more than 100 days a year. Maintaining a lifestyle at that pace meant that I rarely exercised, I didn't eat well, and I was overweight. But I didn't worry. Every year I took a physical and received an excellent report from my doctor. So I simply took my health for granted. All that changed for me on December 18, 1998. That was the night of the annual Christmas party for my employees and their spouses. At the end of the party, I didn't feel well. One of my employees gave me a goodbye hug and felt cold sweat on the back of my neck. Then suddenly I felt an excruciating pain in my chest that brought me to my knees. I had never experienced anything like it. As I lay on the floor awaiting the paramedics, it felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. I was grateful that Margaret, our children, and many of my closest friends were there with me at the party, because I thought I wasn't going to make it. When I got to the hospital, I was told I was having a serious heart attack. As I lay in the emergency room for the next few hours with doctors trying different treatments, none of which seemed to be working, my assistant, Linda Eggers, made a phone call. 6 months earlier, a cardiologist from Nashville named John Brightcage had met me for lunch and shared his concern for my health. At the end of our conversation, he said that if I ever needed his help, I could call him, day or night, and he included his home phone number. So even though it was 2 a.m., Linda called him. Less than an hour later, in walked Dr. Jeff Marshall and some of his colleagues, announcing, "The A-team is here." Dr. Cage had called one of the finest cardiologists in Atlanta and asked him to help me. In the wee hours of the morning, Dr. Marshall performed a procedure to remove a clot that had made its way into my heart. He saved my life. Afterward, he explained that he had used a new procedure that had only recently been developed. If I'd had my heart attack a year or 2 earlier, nothing could have been done. It would have killed me. As I recovered from my heart attack in the hospital, I felt very fortunate to be alive. Cardiovascular diseases are the #1 cause of death in the United States and Europe. Point 2. But I didn't discover how blessed I was until Dr. Marshall told me that I had sustained no damage to my heart. That meant I had the potential to make a full recovery. Dr. Marshall told me that men who survive an early heart attack, and learn from it, often live longer and healthier lives than those who never suffer a heart attack. The key to my Future health would be whether I was willing to make the decision to change the way I lived and stick with it. So, at the age of 51, I made this health decision: I will take good care of myself by exercising and eating right. Making the decision to know and follow healthy guidelines daily. If you know the value of good health, yet you've had a hard time making the commitment to know and follow healthy guidelines, here are some suggestions to help you turn your attention to the subject and tackle it. Have a purpose worth living for. Nothing is better than perspective for helping a person want to do the right thing. When you have something to live for, not only does it make you desire a long life, but it also helps you to see the importance of the steps along the way. Seeing the big picture enables us to put up with little irritations. It's hard to find motivation in the moment when there is no hope in the future. A sense of purpose helps a person to make a decision to change and then to follow through with the discipline required to make that change permanent. I found that to be true after my heart attack. A friend who spent a lot of time with me during my recovery saw me pass on desserts time after time, something that was not characteristic of me, and finally he asked, "Have you lost your craving for desserts?" "No," I answered, "but my craving for life is greater." Do work you enjoy. One of the greatest causes of debilitating stress in people's lives is doing jobs they don't enjoy. It's like comedian Lily Tomlin said, "The problem with the rat race is that even if you win, you're still a rat." I believe two major frustrations contribute to that stress. The first is doing work you don't think is important. If you do work that you believe adds no value to yourself or to others, you quickly become demoralized. If you work in that state for a long time, it begins to wear you down. To remain healthy, your work must be in alignment with your values. Another reason some people don't like their work is that they do jobs that keep them in an area of weakness. Nobody can do that long and succeed. For example, most people hate the thought of public speaking. How would you like to get up in front of an audience and speak to them every day? That's some people's number one fear. But for me, that's my greatest joy. After speaking to people for 6 or 7 hours at a conference, I'm not tired. I'm fired up. Speaking to an audience energizes me. One of the ways you can tell you're working in an area of strength is that it actually gives you energy. Even if you are in the early stages of your career or are starting out on a new venture and you're not very good at something you're doing, you can still tell it's an area of strength by paying attention to how you respond to your failures. Mistakes that challenge you show your areas of strength. Mistakes that threaten you show your areas of weakness. Find your pace. Mickey Mantle reportedly said, "If I had known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself." I think that statement could apply to many people as they age. Part of taking care of yourself includes finding and maintaining the pace that's right for you. If you take life more slowly than your energy level is capable of, you can become lazy. If you continually run at a pace faster than you are capable of, you can burn out. You need to find your balance. As I mentioned previously, I've always been a high energy person, and I always thought there was nothing I couldn't do. But in 1995, when I was 47 years old, I was so tired of leading my church and my own organization that I was worn out. I loved both, but doing them at the same time for over a decade was finally taking its toll on me. One day I told Margaret, "I can't keep doing this. I've got to give up one or the other." Margaret had been advising me for years to cut back my busy schedule, but she was shocked by my statement. "John," she said, "in all the years I've known you, that's the First time I've ever heard you say you are exhausted. Even today, at age 57, I still have a tendency to take on too much and go at a faster pace than is really good for me. There are so many opportunities one want to pursue, books I want to write, and people I want to help. I'm constantly trying to strike a balance between my desire to maintain a healthy pace of life and my drive to accomplish all I can during my lifetime. Accept your personal worth. During the weeks and months after the terrorist attack on New York's World Trade Center, the song God Bless America regained popularity and was performed repeatedly at ball games and other events. The song was written by Irving Berlin, creator of innumerable popular and Broadway hits such as White Christmas, Easter Parade, Puttin' on the Ritz, and There's No Business Like Show Business. Back when I lived in San Diego, I remember reading an interview with Berlin in the Union Tribune in which Don Freeman asked the songwriter whether there was a question he wished someone had asked him. Berlin replied, "Yes, there is one. What do you think of the many songs you've written that didn't become hits?" My reply would be that I still think they are wonderful. Berlin had a good sense of self-worth and confidence in his work, regardless of whether it was accepted by others. That's certainly not true of everyone. In fact, a poor or distorted self-image is the cause of many health-threatening conditions and activities, from drug use and alcoholism to eating disorders and obesity. Psychologist Joyce Brothers says, an individual's self-concept affects every aspect of human behavior. The ability to learn, the capacity to grow and change, the choice of friends, mates, and careers. It is no exaggeration to say that a strong positive self-image is the best possible preparation for success in life. If your self-image is driving you to do things that negatively affect your health, seek help. Laugh. Physician Bernie S. Siegel wrote in Peace, Love and Healing, "I've done the research and I hate to tell you, but everybody dies: lovers, joggers, vegetarians, and non-smokers. I'm telling you this so that some of you who jog at 5 a.m. and eat vegetables will occasionally sleep late and have an ice cream cone." 3. We should never take life or ourselves too seriously. Each of us has idiosyncrasies that can cause us to despair or to laugh. For example, when it comes to anything related to tools or technology, I'm clueless. I'm not Mr. Handyman, I'm Mr. Hopeless. I don't let that bother me at all. If you can laugh at yourself loudly and often, you will find it liberating. There's no better way to prevent stress from becoming distress. Managing the discipline of health. For some people, the discipline of health appears to be easy. My friend Bill Hybels seems to manage it well. He eats well, runs regularly, and keeps his weight down. For years before I had my heart attack, he used to challenge me to take better care of myself. He used to joke to friends that while he was eating birdseed, I was eating steaks and rich desserts. He was right about it catching up with me. Although much of my problem was hereditary, my lifestyle made things worse. After meeting with Dr. Marshall following my heart attack, I had a new discipline to manage. Every day I will eat low-fat foods and exercise for at least 35 minutes. He told me that 85% of all heart patients quit their healthy regimen within 6 months. Even though I had not succeeded in this area in my first 50 years, I was determined to succeed in it the rest of my life. Margaret and I learned everything we could about heart issues, low-fat diets, and exercise. I became a model of discipline. And in May of 2001, when I visited Dr. Marshall, he congratulated me. "John," he said, "you're doing all the right things. You don't need to consider yourself a heart patient anymore. I wish I had never heard those words. You see, I love food. And I possess a foodaholic bent. Because of the good news I received from Dr. Marshall, I gave myself permission to cheat on my diet once in a while, something I had not done even once in 2.5 years. A few weeks later, Margaret and I went on vacation to London with some friends, and I ate food that I had not touched in all that time. I loved every bit of it, especially the fish and chips. The problem was that I quit managing my life according to the decision I had made. I had relaxed my discipline. Once my commitment was less than 100%, I got into trouble. I need to exercise and stay on my diet every day. But I began to slide from every day, to most days, to some days. I ignored my own teaching that today matters. Neglect enough todays, and you'll experience the someday you've wanted to avoid. The good news is that I'm no longer off the wagon. I'm recommitted to my daily discipline. The bad news is that I'm doing only 80% of what I was doing before. Dr. Marshall is trying to help me. He's a good doctor and a good friend, and he knows that sometimes the best medicine is a good kick in the butt. The area of health is still a battle, but it's one I'm determined to win. As I fight the good fight, I hope you'll join me by doing the following things daily. Eat right. It was Mark Twain who observed that the only way to keep your health is to eat what you don't want, drink what you don't like, and do what you'd rather not. Twain was being cynical, but there's a lot of truth to what he said. If we could write our own rules for healthy eating, I think they would look something like this. 1. If no one sees you eat it, then it has no calories. 2. If you drink a diet soft drink with a candy bar, the calories are cancelled out. 3. If you eat with a friend and you eat the same amount, the calories don't count for either of you. 4. Foods used for medicinal purposes never count. Examples include chocolate, brandy, and Sara Lee cheesecakes. 5. The secret of looking thinner is getting the people around you to gain weight. The key to healthy eating is moderation and managing what you eat every day. Don't rely on crash diets. Don't worry about what you ate yesterday. Don't put off good eating until tomorrow. Just try to eat what's best for you in the moment. Focus on now. If you're not sure how you're doing or what you should and shouldn't be eating, get a physical. Your doctor will let you know how you're doing and how to change your diet. Exercise. Most people I know either love exercise and do it excessively or they hate it and avoid it completely, yet consistent exercise is one of the keys to good health. Dr. Ralph S. Pfaffenberger, Jr., a research epidemiologist and physician at the University of California at Berkeley, performed pioneering studies that revealed the impact of exercise on health. Pfaffenberger states, "We know that being physically fit is a way of protecting yourself against coronary heart disease, hypertension and stroke, plus adult-onset diabetes, obesity, osteoporosis, probably colon cancer and maybe other cancers, and probably clinical depression. Exercise has an enormous impact on the quality of life." 4. Pfaffenberger, who ran 151 marathons, asserts that exercise is beneficial for people of all ages. One of the tough things about exercising is that the immediate payoff seems so small. You weigh yourself after exercising. Nothing. You exercise the next day. Nothing. And the next day and the next. Still nothing. Then after the 5th day of exercise, maybe you see that you've lost half a pound. It's easy to get discouraged, especially when you don't see results most of the time. But your 4 days of discipline make the progress you see on the 5th day possible. The key to success in this area is consistency. I exercise a minimum of 5 days a week by walking on a treadmill for at least 35 minutes a day. That's what my doctor has recommended. If you don't already practice the habit of daily exercise, then find a way to get started. It doesn't really matter what you do as long as you do it. Talk to your doctor. Hire a trainer. Do whatever it takes to begin a regimen that's right for you. Handle stress effectively. 100 years ago, most causes of illness were related to infectious disease. Today, they are related to stress. I once read a list of questions produced by the United Kingdom based National Association for Mental Health to help a person gauge whether stress was becoming a problem. Here's what people were asked. Do minor problems and disappointments bother you more than they should? Are you finding it hard to get along with people, and them with you? Have you found that you're not getting a kick out of things you used to enjoy? Do your anxieties haunt you? Are you afraid of situations or people that didn't bother you before? Have you become suspicious of people, even your friends? Do you ever feel that you are trapped? Do you feel inadequate? If you answer yes to many of these questions, stress may be a problem for you. Everybody faces problems and feels pressure at times. Whether that pressure becomes stress depends on how you handle it. Here's how I handle issues to keep them from becoming stressful to me. Family problems, communication, unconditional love. Time together. Limited options, creative thinking, advice from others. Tenacity. Staff productivity problems, immediate confrontation with the person and addressing the issue. Staff leaders with bad attitudes, removal. I've found that the worst thing I can do when it comes to any kind of potential pressure situation is to put off dealing with it. If you address problems with people as quickly as possible and don't let issues build up, you greatly reduce the chances of being stressed out. Your health decision today. Where do you stand when it comes to health today? Ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. Have I already made the decision to know and follow healthy guidelines daily? 2. If so, when did I make that decision? 3. What exactly did I decide? Your health discipline every day. Based on the decision you made concerning health, what is the one discipline you must practice today and every day in order to be successful?
Family. In 1986, when I was 39 years old, I began to notice a terrible trend. The marriages of some of my colleagues, college buddies, and friends were falling apart and ending in divorce. That really got my attention because even some of the relationships that Margaret and I had considered to be strong had fallen by the wayside. We didn't think our relationship was in any kind of danger, but I also discovered that before their breakdowns, some of the couples had thought nothing like that could ever happen to them. This all occurred about the same time my career was really taking off. I still wanted to be successful, but I didn't want to lose my family in the process. That prompted me to make one of my key life decisions, and I would do so by rewriting my definition of success. From that moment, success meant having those closest to me love and respect me the most. That decision put my wife, Margaret, and my children, Elizabeth and Joel, right in the middle of my definition of success. Success would be impossible if I achieved outwardly, but failed to take my family with me on the journey. The applause of others would never replace the appreciation of my family. Respect from others meant little if I did not have the respect of my loved ones. I would make caring for and communicating with my family one of my life's priorities. Making the decision to communicate with and care for my family daily. I don't know where you stand with your family now. Everyone's situation is unique. You may have a great family life, or you may have made some serious mistakes from which You fear you will never recover. You may be single with no children, so that all you have is extended family. But I can tell you this, no matter what your situation is, you can benefit from the stability that comes from communicating with and caring for your family daily. Here's how to get started. Determine your priorities. There's a Russian proverb that gives this advice. Before going to war, pray once. Before going to sea, pray twice. Before getting married, pray 3 times. In other words, any time you're going to engage in a great and potentially risky endeavor, give it serious consideration first. How else are you going to know where it ranks in priority in your life? I began learning this lesson the hard way. In the space of 1 month in 1969, I graduated from college, got married to Margaret, and started my first job. As soon as we got back from our honeymoon, we moved to a new town and I started working. I was the senior pastor of a small country church, and I was determined to be successful. I threw myself into the job, giving it everything I had. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I worked all day at the church, and every evening I set appointments to meet with people in the community. I worked a 6-day work week, but I cheated by working on my day off, too. Meanwhile, Margaret worked a couple of jobs to keep us going financially because my salary was so low. The problem was that I was neglecting her and our marriage. Margaret and I have known each other since high school. And we dated for 6 years before we got married, so we had a lot of history together, especially for a couple so young. Back then I believed our history was going to carry us through while I devoted myself to my career. But a marriage can't survive forever on leftovers. It needs to be fed continually, or it will eventually starve. A lot of people are allowing their families to starve. According to psychologist Ronald L. Klinger, president of the Center for Successful Fathering, parents spend 40% less time with children than parents of previous generations. 5. Families are breaking up at a terrible rate. Within 5 years, 20% of all first marriages end in divorce. Within 10 years, that number rises to 33%. 6. More than a fourth of all families in the United States, 28% in 2000, are headed by single parents. 7. And nearly 3/4 of children in single-parent families will experience poverty by the time they reach age 11.8 every year. $20 billion to $30 billion in taxpayers' money goes to support children whose non-custodial parents neglect them financially. 9. Building a solid family doesn't just happen on its own. You have to work at it. After I got the message that I was neglecting Margaret, I changed my approach to my career. I carved out time for her. I protected my day off. And we dedicated money in our budget to facilitate special times together. I still wanted to be successful, but not at the cost of my family. And I'm still working on making my family a priority. Anyone who neglects or abandons his family for fame, status, or financial gain isn't really successful. Decide on your philosophy. Once you've determined to make your family a priority, you have to decide what you want your family to stand for. That should be based on your values. In the first decade of our marriage, Margaret and I decided on our personal philosophy of family. First, we tried to live it out as a couple. Then when we had children, we worked to make it the foundation of our choices as parents. For us, the bottom line on family was for us to cultivate and maintain commitment to God. Our faith came first in our lives. If we neglected or compromised that, nothing else would be of value. Continual growth, reaching our personal potential and helping our children do the same is one of our highest values. When we come to the end of our lives, we want to look back knowing we lived life to the fullest. Common experiences, the greatest bonds between people come as the result of their experiences together. Both good and bad. We create as many positive experiences as we can, and we weather the negative ones together. Confidence in God, ourselves, and others, your belief, determines how you will live life, and it also affects the outcome of everything you do. Contributions to life: people should try to leave the world a better place than they found it. We want to add value, not only to the people in our family, but also to every other life we touch. As I said, this is our list. I'm not suggesting that you adopt our philosophy regarding family. I know you will want to create your own. Here's my suggestion: keep it simple. If you come up with a list of 17 things you want to live out, you won't be able to do it. You may not even be able to remember it. Whittle the list down to the non-negotiables. Develop your problem-solving strategy. I think a lot of people go into marriage expecting it to be easy. Maybe they've seen too many movies. Marriage isn't easy. Family isn't easy. Life isn't easy. Expect problems, stay committed, and develop a strategy for getting through the rough times. Some people call family meetings to discuss issues. Others create systems or rules. My friends Kevin and Marcia Myers developed a system of fair fight rules after they had been married a few years. Kevin is very outgoing, energetic, and verbal, where Marcia is more quiet and reserved. Early in their marriage, he used to bulldoze right over her verbally, and they would get into marathon arguments. So they decided on a set of rules to follow any time they got into a disagreement. One rule was that they would set an appointment to talk about an issue rather than picking at each other. Another was that Marcia always got to talk first. They've been married over 20 years, and their system has worked great for them. Think about how you could improve your problem solving at home. Talk to your family members about it, during a calm time. Not in the middle of a conflict. Use whatever kind of problem-solving strategy works for you. Just be sure that it fosters and promotes 3 things: 1. Better understanding, 2. Positive change, and 3. Growing relationships. Managing the discipline of family. The desire to make your family a priority is one thing. Actually living it out is something else. I found that it's often easier to get the approval of strangers and colleagues than it is to get respect from those who know you best. So I practice this discipline. Every day I work hard on gaining the love and respect of those closest to me. Years ago, when something exciting happened during the day or I heard a bit of interesting news, I'd share it with colleagues and friends. By the time I got home, I had little enthusiasm for sharing it with Margaret. So I purposely began keeping things to myself until I could share them with Margaret first. That way she never got the leftovers. I've found that the best way to place my family first is to give them some of my best energy and attention. If you desire to strengthen your family life and make it a source of stability, then try practicing some of these disciplines. Put your family on your calendar first. I have found that my work will gobble up every bit of my time if I let it. Before I made the decision to make my family a priority, I didn't give them the time I should have. I think that's true of most people who enjoy their careers. Other people have hobbies or interests that can be very time-consuming. If you don't create boundaries for how you spend your time, your family will always get the leftovers. Even today, if I let my guard down, I'm liable to let work take over my schedule. I battle that trend by putting my family on my calendar first. I block out weeks for family vacations. That may sound too obvious to you, but I mention it because for the first several years I was married, we determined where we would vacation, based on meeting people and going places that would benefit my work. I schedule time with Margaret not only for us to go do things, like see a movie or a show, but also for us to simply be together. I devote time to our grandchildren. And when our children were young, I set aside time to attend ball games, recitals, and other activities. Someone once said you should never let yourself feel that you ought to be at work when you're with your family, and you should never feel that you ought to be with your family when you're at work. That's a great perspective. If you and your family can figure out and agree on how much time you should spend together and you protect those times, you should be able to adopt that mindset. Create and maintain family traditions. I want you to try an experiment. Get out a piece of paper and write down all the Christmas and birthday gifts you received when you were a kid up until you moved away from home. Take as much time as you need. How many are you able to remember? There may be a handful that really stand out, but if you're like most people, you have a hard time recalling most of them. Now try this: list all the vacations you took with your family during those same years. Again, take as much time as you'd like. I'd be willing to bet that if you took vacations every year, you were able to remember more of them than the presents you received. Why? Because what makes families happy isn't receiving things. It's doing things together. That's why I recommend establishing family traditions. Traditions give your family a shared history and a strong sense of identity. Don't you remember how your family celebrated Thanksgiving as a child? How about Christmas? And didn't you think yours was the right way when you got married and your spouse wanted to do something else? The traditions your family kept helped you define who you were and who your family was. Give thought to how you want to enjoy holidays, mark milestones, and celebrate rites of passage in your family. Start by basing traditions on your values. Add others you enjoyed from your childhood. If you're married, include those of your spouse as well. Mix in cultural elements if you want. Build some around your children's interests. Give traditions meaning and make them your own. Find ways to spend time together. For a while, the family buzzwords were quality time. But the truth is, no substitute exists for quantity of time. As psychiatrist Armand Nicoli says, time is like oxygen. There's a minimum amount that's necessary for survival. And it takes quantity as well as quality to develop warm and caring relationships. Since busy, single-parent households are so common, and in the majority of two-parent families both parents work, you have to figure out ways to spend time together. For about 6 years, when my children were teenagers, I gave up golf so that I would have more time available. And Margaret and I always worked especially hard to find time for certain things, such as significant events. We made birthdays, ball games, recitals, and so forth important. Significant needs. You can't put a family member in crisis on hold. Fun time. We found that everybody relaxed and talked more when we were having fun. One-on-one time. Nothing lets another person know you care more than your undivided attention. Come up with your own list of ways to spend time with your family. Keep your marriage healthy first. The relational foundation of any family is a couple's marriage. It sets the tone for the household, and it is the model relationship that children learn from more than any other. That's why former Notre Dame President Theodore Hesburgh asserted, the most important thing a father can do for his children is love their mother. No marriage is easy to keep going. It's been said that a successful marriage is one that can go from crisis to crisis with a growth in commitment. That's what it's really all about. Commitment. Commitment is what carries you through. People who use their feelings as a barometer for the health of their marriage are destined for a breakup. If you intend to stay married only as long as you feel the love, you might as well give up. Just like anything else worth fighting for, marriage requires daily discipline and commitment. Express appreciation for each other. Psychologist William James said, in every person from the cradle to the grave, there is a deep craving to be appreciated. If people don't receive affirmation and appreciation at home, there's a good chance they won't get it because, in general, the world does not fulfill that desire. One of the most positive Things you can do for your spouse and children is really get to know them and love them simply because they are yours, not based on performance. Resolve conflict as quickly as possible. I've already mentioned how important it is to develop a strategy for resolving conflict, but it's such an important point that I want to remind you of it again. Every family has conflict, but not all families resolve it positively. A family's response to problems will either promote bonding or be destructive. Do it quickly and effectively, and you bring healing. Neglect conflict, and you may find yourself agreeing with novelist F. Scott Fitzgerald, who said, "Family quarrels are bitter things. They don't go according to any rules. They're not like aches or wounds, they're more like splits in the skin that won't heal. Because there's not enough material. It doesn't have to be that way." Your family decision today. Where do you stand when it comes to family today? Ask yourself these 3 questions. 1. Have I already made the decision to communicate with and care for my family? 2. If so, when did I make that decision? 3. What exactly did I decide? Your family discipline every day. Based on the decision you made concerning family, what is the one discipline you must practice today and every day in order to be successful? This is the end of Chapter 1 of John C. Maxwell's book entitled Listeners Make Today Count. Dear members of the YIS Media family, we sincerely hope that you are happy with the story. Give us credit for your sacrifice of time and follow-up. Stay safe until we meet in the second part of the book.